Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Tuesday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. Is Darvin Ham less popular now than Byron Scott? That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. This one is always free. It is never behind a paywall. And Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 23,000 subscribers, all of whom, Andy, are wondering what exactly is going on with this team that seemed like it was on a roll and now is just kind of rolling downhill or something not good. Whatever something bad would be, that seems to be where this team is right now. And whether or not, and we got this text from Nick Angstad, who you guys know from Locked On Mavs. You may not know, he actually runs the channel here at Locked On, the NBA channel. He asked us, he saw some of the reaction, both our show that we did for Monday, but just the reaction around Lakers social media, and basically asked us whether or not if Darvin has reached Byron Scott levels of unhappiness with Lakers fans. And we thought that was actually a really interesting question on a lot of levels. So we're going to get to that in a second. But first, Andy, the Lakers, going into Wednesday's game against the Clippers, they've got some stuff that needs to be fixed. I know we teased it for today's episode on Monday. Different adjustments the Lakers could be making, different things that they ought to be doing. What sticks out to you? Because I know you've been digging up some numbers.
3-point defense, and it's apropos, obviously, after a loss where Grayson Allen and Royce O'Neal went nuts from behind the arc, hit 12 threes between them. They actually really are the ones who did in the Lakers, along with Yusuf Nurkic, as opposed to Devin Booker or Kevin Durant, as one would logically fear. And this is an extension of something that has been happening all season. The Lakers are 8th worst in the league at defending the three-point line. Teams shoot almost 38% against them. They are percentage points away from being top 5 worst, like pretty easily. And, I know luck, depending on how you calculate it, certain analytics, whatever, factor into 3-point shooting. But when it is this much of a thing all season, that ain't the breaks not coming your way. Like, this is a sustainable pattern. Teams, by the way, the Lakers are 3rd in the league for threes attempted against them, because why wouldn't they be? I mean, after a while, I think these other teams start recognizing, hey, you might want to launch some trays against the Lakers because they don't do a good job guarding the line.
Right. Because look, sometimes, like you say, it is by design. Like the NBA is a difficult place to defend currently now. And you choose, you try, well, we will give up A in order to do B. We will allow C in order to defend D and prevent, which is, by the way, one of the things that's sort of, I guess, frustrating about the way they lost on Sunday. It was like, it's almost like if Durant and Booker blow up, it's like those guys score 76 points per 85 points between them. They're like, that's why they're paid millions and millions of dollars. It's the fact that they didn't and they still lost. But the Lakers, the shot quality, it's not just that they give up a lot of threes, it's that they give up a lot of quality threes.
Right.
And I think that's part of the issue.
Yes, it is. It is part of a strategy we've seen all season, or an approach, however, an ethos, however you want to put it, where certain shooters, and in a lot of cases, just the ones who are not stars, anybody taking threes, they are often, I don't want to say just given the shot at all times, but they are lesser on the priority chart in terms of who you are looking to guard. The Lakers often help off pretty good shooters, and sometimes guys who are in a bit of a shooting slump, but have an established track record, if nothing else, in the past of being good shooters, or guys who are mediocre shooters, but they take threes. So they are guys that they're not like Jackson Hayes. They're guys that if you give them open looks, they will probably eventually.
That's the thing. That's the thing. It's not that like there's certain shooters that you want to let take 3-point shots. And quickly do want to let people know today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started. And like again, the 3-point thing comes at the trade-off of say trying to keep people off the line. Like the Lakers are good. Part of the reason their free throw differential is so good is both because they pile up free throws, but they also do a good job keeping teams off the line. Some of that is how you shape your defense and which shots you give up and what you concede and how aggressively you run out on drives and all of that. I think where the Lakers keep running into trouble is if you allow average 3-point shooters high quality looks, then they may not be average anymore. Right. Like you want to allow average 3-pointers or bad 3-point shooters the kind of looks that let them be average or bad on most nights. And they don't do a very good job with that.
No, they don't. I mean, it feels very often like they have an approach of eventually the averages will even themselves out. Like the law of averages will eventually even out, which may be the case, but not necessarily in this game you're playing. It may even out, say, 2 games from now against a different opponent, which means you may have been right, but it doesn't actually help you. And in this game against the Suns, for example, where they were doing a lot of helping off, the Grayson Allen, who, by the way, is not somebody you should be helping off anyway, because
he's too good a shooter.
Right.
Grayson Allen doesn't qualify for this because he's too good a shooter.
Right.
Let me rephrase. Shouldn't. But the flip, part of what makes Phoenix difficult to defend is you have to give so much attention to Durant and Booker that Grayson Allen, by definition, is going to get open shots. It's going to be very good this year.
I understand that, but it's also important to remember that, say Royce O'Neal, eventually he is a credible enough 3-point shooter that if you give him enough looks and allow him a rhythm, as we saw, he'll start hitting them. And Royce O'Neal is like an avatar for many shooters against the Lakers this year. It was upsetting to me in this game because I actually thought, I wouldn't have left, say, Reeves on Booker by himself for an entire game or Rui on Durant for himself by an entire game. But there were several possessions where, as bad as I thought Austin Reeves was against Phoenix overall, and as much as he's had defensive issues all year, he had several possessions in this game matched up against Booker where he defended him well enough, either into a miss or, that's Devin Booker being Devin Booker. Rui had several of those against Kevin Durant, where it's like, some of them he defended him into a miss. Some of them it's Kevin Durant. But either way, Durant was not killing him in this. And these other guys were. But also, and this is why I really think the Lakers need to be rethinking this strategy. You cannot allow teams to hit threes against you at this type of clip when you are a team that does not take threes. The Lakers are dead last in the league for threes attempted. It's not even that they don't make them. They've actually very quietly turned into a credible 3-point shooting team. They're not lasers, as LeBron said, but they're credible. But it doesn't matter because they take so few of them unless everything else in their offense is clicking at a high level. This is math that will not work in their favor. I'm an idiot when it comes to math. I can even tell you this math won't work. Yeah. Like at this point, it is a math problem. They need to recognize won't work unless everything else really clicks.
Let's talk about that. By the way, Grayson Allen, I didn't even realize how high his 3-point percentage has
it's almost
been
50%.
It's 49%. I thought he was low to mid 40s. It's 49. So yeah, don't let him shoot.
Right. Yes.
But it's okay. So there's a lot going on here, and it dovetails really nicely into the tease that we mentioned about Nick's text to us and the feelings that people have about Darvin. And to quote our friend Darius Soriano, yes and no. And I'll explain next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by Nissan. And are you the kind of driver who likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capability to take your adventure to the next level. The 2024 Nissan Rogue is perfect for city drives and great escapes. Class exclusive, Google built-in is your always updating assistant to call on for almost anything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone, Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store. They're built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system. That's a very big screen. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect mid-size crossover for your next adventure. And Nissan's incredible lineup also includes the 2024 Pathfinder. It has room for up to 8 with an expansive cargo capacity and advanced 4x4 capability with 284 horsepower and up to 6,000 pounds towing. So take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop nissanusa.com.
So, like, when we start out here, Andy, I will say this. I think it is reasonable to, like, I 3-point shooting is psychologically really, it can be very damaging. And, like, just kind of like, 2 or 3 of those in a row, it's like, oh my God, it's like you feel like these, the points are just literally raining down on you and all these other things. Ultimately, if the grand scheme is your defense allows the right number of points, it doesn't really matter to me. It's also, a parade to the rim can be demoralizing. Constant fouling where the other team gets, 33, 34 free throws a game can be really demoralizing. Anytime that your defense has a lot of breakdowns. So I don't inherently have an objection to other team takes 3-pointers. That's what we choose to give up in an effort to try to protect the rim, in an effort to try to keep teams off the free throw line and whatever. I think my big objection comes in not that they say, this guy is the guy we're identifying and we're going to let them, we're going to pick, that's the poison we're going to pick.
Sure.
Okay.
Picking poison is part of a game very often.
And sometimes, by the way, on nights the way Lakers are winning, sometimes it works.
Sure.
My bigger problem is when you alluded to this, when the Lakers get into these situations where shooter X, who is your designated, okay, we're going to see if that guy can beat us tonight, is the guy that is beating us tonight. They are far too quick to do something to disrupt that rhythm, to throw a different defense, to change up a coverage, to do something, even if it's for 10 minutes, to try to just change that dynamic. So then you can go back to the defense that you wanted to play. I feel like, and leave it in the comments if I'm missing something, although Lakers fans not thrilled with Darvin. I'm not trying to see how much of it, but like, I don't mind people pointing out where I'm wrong. I feel like the Lakers are too slow or just flat don't adjust to what is happening to their primary strategy defensively. I think they do a better job adjusting offensively over the course of games, but not on the other side of the ball.
Yeah. I mean, again, the idea that this is the Lakers' strategy to start a game is not illogical, nor is it frankly very unique. There are a lot of teams who do this, a version of this, but we've seen enough evidence that the Lakers will start getting hurt by this strategy. And they just seem to have this idea that eventually it'll even out, or, this is what we do. We're going to trust in this. And eventually that trust is going to pay off. And, like in a global overarching sense, you want to have that sort of confidence in your players and your system from your coach, because players look for that confidence in them, in what they're doing.
And they want consistency too.
Yes.
They don't want you abandoning your principles or your game plan at the drop of a hat. And that's not what I'm talking about. And look,
neither me.
Neither you. I know. And then there are certain times when, like, look, 27% 3-point shooter, if they want to take 11 of those, 12 of those from that guy and he makes 7, fine. Like, that guy's so bad that you just kind of have to let, what, like you said before, like, okay, the 11th one's not going to go in. Like
Josh Smith and Corey Brewer in that series for the Rockets against the Clippers, where
good example.
I was at that game, and I remember being like, okay, I know this is like part of the 3-1 blown lead legend for Doc Rivers, but like this was one of those times where I'm like, I don't know what Doc is supposed to do, because you really want Josh Smith taking step back threes in a playoff game. Like the idea that Doc was going to adjust to stop Josh Smith from doing that.
Right. At the expense of opening up things that are much higher efficiency. Yeah, I agree with you.
Put the ball back in James Harden's hands. That makes no sense.
I think the point you're making too about like the way that like the threes sometimes can overwhelm an offense that's not predicated on threes is also kind of an interesting one. Like, does your defensive strategy match your offensive strategy? Like, and it's, I am again, I get sympathetic to like, the overall defense for the Lakers. It is a difficult place right now when, Reddish is out, Vanderbilt is out, Christian Wood is out, to play. Cause like, Jackson Hayes had a really nice stretch, but when he's not on, like he can be really difficult to play. There's a reason he ended up on the bench, for a decent stretch of the season. And so the Lakers don't have a lot of the tools available to them to allow Darvin to, have a full range of options. This is why I've always said,
particularly when he won't play Max Christie.
Right. But even then, he's a tool who at least kind of is shaped like some of the other tools that he has available. Different skill. We talked about this a lot on Monday. Different skill set, all that. But like the basic size is the same.
Right.
The other,
but it's at least a tool designed somewhat differently for something else.
It's a tool that's good for other things.
Right. It's like it's like the difference between like a soup spoon and a regular spoon. They're both spoons. They're pretty similar, but one is better for the soup.
What they really need is a ladle. They need something bigger.
In this particular case, Max Christie is closer to a ladle than Spencer Dinwiddie.
So
I mean, he is
locked on spoons. So when we get this question from Nick, I kind of go back to like my basic philosophy on Darvin, although it shifts nightly towards maybe it's not that hard, but that he is taking a very difficult class. If this were college, he'd be in like honors history, like whatever. And he's not doing well. It's a hard class at a good university. He's still not doing well. Like maybe he'd do better at a lesser university in an easier class, but this is the one he's in and he's not failing well or he's not faring well this year. And so when you get the question, Andy, is he at this point more unpopular than Byron Scott, who was, to refresh everyone's memory, wildly unpopular as the head coach of the Lakers? What did you respond?
Well, I mean, first of all, just to tack on a little bit to the analogy you were making with Darvin in class, it's not just that he's taking an accelerated, difficult class and struggling more with it this season. It's that it felt like in certain ways he took a harder class last year, did better in it, was taking the somewhat easier class this year, basically just to like fill credits he needed for his degree. And for some reason, he's doing worse in the class that he should be better equipped in to succeed in this year. I'm saying that is where I think
I don't know if I entirely agree with you, but I understand what you're saying.
I think in certain respects, that is where the frustration lies for a lot of fans with Darvin, because it's not just that he's struggling this year, it's that he feels like he is regressing this year.
Well,
that there are more struggles this year when he began the year, even acknowledging like Jared Vanderbilt's injuries, Gabe Vincent, Rui in and out of the lineup, he still started with a better base than last year's team. I think we can all agree. Better. And it's felt like there's been a regression. As far as, the comp between him and Byron, and, for what it's worth, you and I covered those teams pretty closely. We both had issues with the way Byron coached those teams. We both liked Byron a lot.
Byron's a great guy.
Yeah, we both actually, and these were conversations we had face to face with Byron. I've done radio on ESPN with Byron many times. He remembers us having those conversations. Like he is cool with the disagreement. But again, just to emphasize, we both liked him a lot even while we covered him. We just didn't agree with his approach. But where I think, and we can talk about this afterwards, Darvin has grown more unpopular than Byron is, no matter what you thought of Byron's approach with, those final 2 years of Kobe combined with, Randall, Russell, Nance, Clarkson, these guys that were supposed to be developing and really weren't under Byron. Those teams still were not set up to win. And we used to emphasize this all the time. You cannot hold the team record against Byron. That's not fair to him. You can hold other things, but not that.
Mm-hmm.
These teams are set up to win and set up to succeed more. And the wins have been much harder to come by. So I think that has led to frustration that at this point does have Darvin more unpopular than Byron. Plus, Byron was a part of Showtime. And you can't ever take that away from him.
That helped.
Yes, it did.
And
he was Kobe's mentor.
There's a couple other things that I think that are in play here. I think that the competitive aspect of it is part of it, and no question. But there are a couple other things that I think are in play here when you look at this thing about whether or not Darvin is less popular than Byron. I think the answer is yes. And they get both to Darvin's disappointment this year, but also things with the Lakers kind of institutionally that make a big difference here too. So let's get to all of it next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by BetterHelp, and sometimes we all need an opportunity to get things off our chest, big or small. Those type of just nagging issues, nagging feelings, they can really start to get to you, and it's really important to let that out with somebody unbiased in your life. Like, find an outlet. We, for example, try to make Locked on Lakers a nice escape from real life for our listeners, our viewers. We're all passionate about the Lakers, and there can be a stress release from enjoying a Lakers game. Sometimes I worry it creates more stress, but either way, there are more pressing
You didn't
issues.
say there is a stress release. You said there can be a stress release.
Either way, there are more stressful elements in life than a Laker game. We know this, and most of us have bigger problems in our life than our favorite sports teams. And again, it's really important to be able to get those things off your chest, and therapy can be really huge in that process. It can be different for everybody. If you are thinking of starting therapy, you should give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It is designed to be flexible. It's suited to be part of your schedule, and you can visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA.
You mentioned a couple, the expectations obviously play a massive role here in terms of, those Byron teams were not good. And they were not expected to be good. To some degree, you had the Kobe farewell tour, which was very much a kind of let's not look behind the curtain kind of time, and all of that. And so, a young team that wasn't expected to go anywhere. This team had legitimate championship aspirations coming into the year. And while that is not gone, they're not the favorite. I think it's okay to say that. I don't think that's too crazy on my part. But there's a couple other things here, I think, that are in play. It's that the Lakers, since Phil Jackson, have gone through Mike Brown for a season and 5 games, 1 season of Mike D'Antoni, 2 seasons of Byron Scott, 3 seasons of Luke Walton, 3 seasons of Frank Vogel, and now 2 seasons of Darvin Ham, with the hope, fair or not, I think from most fans, Andy, that they will fire him at the end of the year. And there's certainly, I think, a chance of that if the season doesn't turn around, although there's also a very good chance he's brought back. That is a lot of coach for a franchise that historically has had iconic and good coaches. You combine that with the fact that they did not pay Ty Lue. And I think that adds to the frustration. So some of this, Darvin in some
or that they fired in Frank Vogel, a coach who had just recently won them a championship.
Right.
And the biggest struggle he was having was the Russell Westbrook edition, which I don't think Frank Vogel had enough juice in the building to make that happen by himself.
Right. And like, look, fans get mad at their coaches. And Frank Vogel's not a institutional Eric Spoelstra, but if you're going to replace him, you need to make sure you're replacing him with something better. And I don't think that Darvin has necessarily shown himself to be better than Vogel at this point. And so in some ways, we talk about Taurean Prince as kind of an avatar for Lakers fans to be mad at Darvin. Like they're angry at Prince because they're really mad at Darvin for putting Prince out there as much. It's not Prince's fault, but here we are. In some ways, I think Darvin is a bit of a proxy, or can be a bit of a proxy, for anger at the Lakers for not being able to get this thing right over and over and over again, and for not doing things that the Lakers had done like the first class way. They do it with players. Go get LeBron, go get Anthony Davis, pay them, max them out, whatever. But then you don't do it for the coach, who is clearly the best coach, not just the best coach on the market available to you, wanted to come here,
was a former Laker.
Our player loves him.
Yeah.
And they didn't do it.
Right. And was a former Laker. Like Ty Lue won 2 championships with the organization. Like, there's
a cake, Andy.
Yeah. There's familiarity with him. And you are correct that this feels like an extension of this continual problem they've had since Phil Jackson with landing on a coach, and even acknowledging that the NBA exists now as a place where coaches are largely hired to be fired. Mm-hmm. There are a few exceptions: Pop, Spoelstra, Steve Kerr. But for the most part, these guys are regarded as disposable, interchangeable, whatever. But even by that standard, the Lakers have run through a lot of coaches. Mm-hmm. Like, if you want to go back to the 2011 season, Phil's last year, and go from there, because I've done the math, the Lakers are something like top 7 in the league in terms of coaching turnover. That's
not supposed to happen for a legacy franchise.
No, absolutely. So there is what that represents in terms of organizational chaos that has, over the last 10 or so years, extended far beyond just the coaching. There's been the bus infighting, the Magic Johnson of it all, the, Pelinka at times. Like, there's been a lot, the Ramby, like a lot happening with this organization. But then, you mentioned Taurean Prince as that avatar. I was looking up some other numbers, and you and I have defended Taurean a lot for being unfairly targeted as that avatar, and that in certain respects, he is playing better than the association to Darvin would lead fans to bring. But there's also the element of, and this goes back to the beginning of the conversation, with adjustments, having trust in your players, but sometimes too much trust, or not allowing enough trust towards other players. Like, there's been a lot of data that shows that on the whole, the Lakers play better with bigger lineups, and Darvin's inclinations are often to go smaller,
no question,
with skill guards, where he's butting up against both the eye test and the data. But then,
the more frustrating, but like in the more recent games, it's the larger player is Taurean. Like some of this is it is important to remember context and availability. I think where the frustration is legitimate is when you have the options to do anything.
Sure.
When the Lakers were playing, that run where they started to play better, they played bigger. Right. And then, some of the big guys got hurt.
Oh, sure. I don't even mean specifically like Sunday against Phoenix. Or even the last couple of games. I just mean this has been a broad trend.
Yeah.
And, as an example, and I know it's something I brought up a lot, but we've seen it a lot in the YouTube comments section. Like, the discrepancy between the amount of leeway and playing time Torian will often automatically get versus the amount of playing time that Rui will get.
For sure.
And I dug into some numbers, and the Lakers, they're 31-28 on the season. They are 11-1 when Torian plays 25 minutes or less. He's averaging about 25 this season, but they're 11-1 when he plays 25 or less. He's missed 3 games. That means they've gone 18-26 when he plays over 25 minutes. And I recognize there's different context, specific situations. Who may be missing.
As it's like plus minus. As a shorthand, there's probably something there.
Right. And if you look at Torian's splits, he's played on average 27 minutes when they win, almost 33 when they lose. And it's not even that he played so great in the losses but they lost anyway. His shooting percentages are better in the wins when he's playing fewer minutes. So it can feel like Darvin allowing him to play through struggles. Contrast that with Rui, who's also averaging about 25 minutes per game. And it's taken some time to come to that. And it doesn't always feel like those minutes are as natural to come as easy to Darvin. The Lakers are 11-7 when he plays 28 minutes or more. Which, I know 11-7 is setting the world on fire, but it's a team that's only 3 games above 500. They're 7-4 when he plays 30 plus minutes. He's missed 14 games. So that means the Lakers are 13-14 when he plays less than 28 minutes. Like, again, I know there's different contexts, different games are all separate, blah, blah, blah. But there is a point where I understand where fans are like, what is he looking at? Why is he not adjusting?
I think the Prince numbers are probably a little more compelling to me, just because there's more variance in there. Like there's a much more stark pattern there between like a variance of like 4 games or something like that with Rui. And I think interestingly, there's less. I mean, Torian has like all role players. He has games where he's awful, and he has games where he's sort of better, but there's sort of less, to me, there's less variance in kind of what he's doing from night to night than sometimes I think you get with Rui. I think he is less matchup dependent. Like Rui sometimes occasionally runs into a matchup that makes it defensively with whereas Torian, you can kind of always figure out, like, I can get him, like he's just more of a choice. Like, and it's a thing that Darvin keeps going to in ways that feel forced.
Jovan Buha from The Athletic, friend of the show, he has a new, by the way, YouTube podcast that everybody should be checking out. But he had a great line that actually
your second listen every day.
Yeah, obviously. But he had a great line that made me think about actually this stuff with Torian versus Rui and dig into a little bit of these numbers. He said that Darvin wears his trust on his sleeve. And I think that's a very accurate way of putting it, which I'm sure at times when things are going well, that's great, because I think at heart, Darvin actually is a player's coach at heart, and that's the way he's built. But when there can be more decisions to make, sometimes that can become a problem.
Yeah, but I will say it's a good, wear that on your sleeves, because when your hands in your pockets all the time, your sleeves are very still and it's easy to read them. So it's just, there's a lot, and tomorrow's show, there's things about this I think are, the most disappointing thing, we can get into a little bit more tomorrow, is what you said. It's this idea that he's gotten worse this year than he was last year. Because both of us supported the Darvin hire.
Yes.
And we both, and it looked like he was on a track last year to be a decent coach. He still could be. And both of us were on track or on board with the Vogel firing, but only because the Lakers put themselves in a position where they had to do it, not because necessarily it was the right way to handle him. We'll talk more about this. We'd love to get some of your comments too, to be able to weave into that. And obviously we'll get you ready for the Clipper game, a huge game for the Lakers Wednesday night. Updates on Paul George, who's going to play for both teams, all that kind of stuff. Get you ready for the game. All that coming up tomorrow. See everyone tomorrow.